Remember when breakfast wasn't just a meal? It was a moment, a time when mornings were full of sizzle, aroma, and the excitement of dishes that made the start of the day feel special. But those iconic breakfasts from the 70s have all but disappeared, and today, most of us wouldn't dare touch them. Or would we? Get ready to take a bite out of nostalgia as we explore forgotten 1970s breakfasts. Let's dive into 10 breakfast dishes that defined our mornings but have vanished from our tables, beginning with a classic that once ruled every American kitchen. Milk toast. I'm talking about milk toast. This simple breakfast made you feel nourished and ready to start the day perfectly. You may be thinking of French toast, however, milk toast was just a bit different. You could almost call it the grandfather of French toast. The preparation was basic: a slice of white bread soaked lightly in sweetened milk. To enhance the flavor, you could add a little bit of butter, sugar, or even cinnamon. While it may sound unusual to you now, it was considered a popular comfort food back then. It was a simple and warm and comforting breakfast, especially loved by children and the elderly. During times of food scarcity, milk toast became incredibly popular because of its affordable ingredients and easy preparation. However, as food shortages ended and modern breakfast options like cereals and Pop-Tarts emerged, this once beloved dish slowly faded away. Let's move on to something lighter. Grapefruit with sugar and a maraschino cherry was at one point the epitome of a healthy breakfast. It was fresh, sweet, and with a bright red cherry in the center, it almost looked like dessert. The dish was incredibly simple: half of a grapefruit sprinkled with a little bit of sugar to take the edge off of the bitterness, and a cherry placed decoratively in the middle. For an extra refreshing kick, the grapefruit was sometimes chilled in the fridge before serving. With its combination of bitterness, sweetness, and fruity freshness, the dish was especially popular amongst adults. And while it may sound more like a snack than a full breakfast, back then it was considered the perfect beginning to the day. Light and refreshing. Many people believed it was good for their health and figure, and even though the grapefruit diet later became controversial, the breakfast was a staple for quite a long time. Over time, breakfast trends would shift toward more protein-rich options, and the grapefruit slowly fell out of favor. Egg in a hole. The next breakfast was the perfect way to combine eggs and toast. We all know toast with eggs, but egg in a hole was a bit more creative. In the 1970s, it was seen as a fun and quick way to enjoy both together. To make it, you'd cut a hole in the middle of a slice of bread, then an egg was fried inside of that hole, with the bread turning crispy on the outside and the egg perfectly cooked in the center. The dish was often served with a little bit of butter and salt, and sometimes even topped off with cheese or herbs. The breakfast option was popular because of its simple preparation and the creative way it turned a basic meal into something a little bit more special. It was a hit with both children and adults. At a time when simple, cost-effective meals were preferred, the dish brought a touch of creativity to the morning. While it's still made occasionally today, it has largely lost its status as a breakfast staple, being replaced with more modern options. Shake-a-puddin'. Now we'll move on to an innovative way to save time in the morning. We all know the hassle of preparing pudding, mixing and stirring and all those dirty dishes, but shake-a-puddin' was the solution. In the 1970s, this was pudding in a can, and it was hit for those who wanted something quick and convenient. You simply shook up the can, and the pudding was ready to eat. The can contained a pre-made pudding mixture, which you just added a little bit of water to, and after shaking it up, it was perfectly smooth and ready to serve. The hassle-free preparation made it a popular choice during a time when convenience and innovation were highly valued. However, despite all the hype back then, products like Shake-a-Puddin' have nearly disappeared from the market today, as fresh ingredients and homemade desserts have become popular once again. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. All cinnamon lovers, this one's for you. Don't confuse this dish with the popular Cinni Minis, because what's coming next was essentially their predecessor. Cinnamon Toast Crunch was a homemade classic from the 70s that many children adored. All you needed was a slice of white bread, a little bit of butter, and a generous sprinkling of cinnamon and sugar. It was then lightly toasted or baked to a crispy finish, and the combination of butter, sugar, and cinnamon made it an irresistibly sweet snack. Perfect for a quick breakfast. In the 1970s, cinnamon toast was one of the most simple and affordable breakfast options, especially popular amongst children for its quick preparation and delicious sweetness. Today, it's been replaced by modern ready-made alternatives like Cine Minis. Quiche Lorraine. Now we'll move on to something a bit more fancy. On weekends in the 70s, breakfast could sometimes be a more elaborate affair, and quiche Lorraine was on the upscale and savory options for a cozy Sunday morning, seen as an exotic treat. It was a savory tart full of eggs, bacon, and cheese, all nestled within a buttery crust, and this mixture of crispy crust and creamy, rich filling was especially popular in the 70s when French cuisine was considered chic and modern. The dish symbolized elegance and was often served at brunches or special occasions, and while it's still known today, it's largely lost its place as a breakfast favorite as people have shifted toward more light and quick options. Muffin Pizza. We've all eaten pizza for breakfast at some point, but this dish is not about cold pizza leftovers. Muffin pizza was a popular and creative way to begin the day in the 1970s. Combining a savory snack with a quick breakfast, an English muffin was sliced and used as the pizza base, topped with classic pizza ingredients such as tomato sauce, cheese, and various toppings. These mini pizzas were then baked in the oven or toaster until the cheese melted and the muffin became crispy. The savory and quick breakfast was especially loved by kids, but over time trends shifted more towards sweet and lighter breakfasts, causing the muffin pizza to gradually disappear from the breakfast table. Freaky cereal. Cereals were already a hit in the 1970s, and Freakies wasn't only popular for its sweet taste, but also for its colorful monster mascots that kids could collect from the cereal boxes themselves. Children loved following the adventures of the Freakies, each character having its own personality, making breakfast an experience. The cereal consisted of crunchy, sweet-coated grain balls, usually eaten with milk, and its texture and sugary flavor made it a favorite. The colorful packaging and TV commercials showcased the beloved collectible figures, making it one of the standout cereals of its time. The monsters with names like Boss Moss and Goody Goody were the stars of the advertising campaigns. They all lived in a tree where their favorite cereal grew. And despite the successful marketing strategy, the product disappeared from shelves in the late 70s. There were some attempts to bring the brand back in the 80s and 90s, but it never regained its former success. The Jelly Omelet. Lastly, we have a breakfast that was quite unusual, even by standards in the 70s. If you think you've seen it all when it comes to breakfast, you may not have encountered this combination. Have you ever tried eggs with jelly? Well, that's what the jelly omelet was, a sweet and savory blending that featured a standard omelet full of jelly, jam, or marmalade. The odd pairing of a fluffy omelet with a fruity spread was an attempt to blend dessert-like flavors with a traditional breakfast. And while some people loved the unique combination, calling it a delightful mixture of textures and tastes, others found the contrast of sweet jelly with the richness of eggs just a bit too strange. Though experimenting with Jell-O and other sweet additions to meals was a trend in the 70s, the jelly omelet eventually faded out of popularity, overshadowed by more conventional breakfast options. This breakfast dish, although no longer mainstream, serves as a reminder of the creativity and culinary risks that characterized the food culture of the 1970s. Did these nostalgic breakfast favorites bring back memories? If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, make sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to Retro USA, and ring that bell so you never miss a moment of our vintage vibes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.